Welcome back to the Awakening Women podcast. In this episode, I'm talking to you about polarity and the importance of understanding this in a romantic love relationship. And this is one of the laws. If you study any of the universal laws or the Kabbalion, this is one of the laws, which is the law of polarity. And this really just means that it's an energy that needs contrast to generate that charge, just like electricity. There needs to be a positive and negative. There needs to be its opposite. And so when it comes to this, when we're talking about relationships, it is really important to have this, because if we don't have this, it neutralizes the relationship. It can become toxic if the male is in his feminine, he's not in his leadership, and it can become toxic because he is not seeing his role as the provider, protector, and leader of the relationship. So a lot of women in their feminist ways and their beliefs, I'm not knocking feminism, but I also think it can shoot us in the foot. It's the whole thing like I can do anything a man can do, so then I'm going to attract a woman. You know, if you're a heterosexual woman, you want a man that's in his masculine. So if you come in ready to take care of everything and be manager of the world, then that's exactly what you end up attracting. Eventually, it all comes out in the wash that he is not in healthy leadership. It's always, what about you? What about what you're doing? What about me? And, you know, what are you bringing? And where's your half? You know, it's that kind of thing. And so without that pull between the two currents, there is no charge. There's no magnetism toward the two. This, I believe, is what creates a lot of conflict, and it creates a lack of sexual spark. When we don't have this, and we have a man that's too much in his feminine, and the woman is busting balls and taking care of everything, she loses her attraction to him. And if he's in his healthy masculine, meaning he doesn't want to dominate and control you, he actually wants you in your feminine receptivity. And this doesn't mean that you don't lead, that you don't have your own purpose, and you don't have your own money, and you don't have your own career. No, I don't recommend that. I recommend every woman needs to have her own way. But having a provider man means he's financially secure and he can lead the family, or at least not make it worse. Like he's not being financially reckless, like gambling, like shopping and spending and buying all kinds of expensive man toys. Meanwhile, everybody is expected to go with less, right? So when we're talking about the family unit, this is where I think a lot of women go wrong, because a lot of us women who have wounding around being vulnerable, we enter relationships like the doer of all things. And this really ends up becoming our worst, our greatest strength becomes our greatest weakness in a sense. And so when we have this neutrality of the energies, the neutrality of polarity, without that pull, there's no spark. There's none of that healthy, sexy charge in the relationship. So Carl Jung called it the anima and animus. This is not just fluff like what you hear online about all these people talking about what masculine and feminine energy is. My background is in psychology, so I like to learn the psychology behind a lot of these things. So when we're talking about the psychology and the energy, we're talking about Carl Jung, and we're talking about the law of polarity. So when we're bringing those two in, this is really powerful. The masculine is within the woman and the feminine is within the man. We have both. But healthy polarity isn't about erasing that inner counterpart. It's really about knowing which one leads. And so when a woman is anchored in her feminine presence, which is receptive, intuitive, deeply feeling, it draws out a healthy masculine core. Again, I'm saying healthy. When you're with a man who is interested in being controlling and manipulative and toxic, your vulnerability is actually a threat to him, and it won't feel safe to be vulnerable. So when a man is in his healthy masculine core, he has direction, protection, and presence. He's leading things. He's moving forward. He's very high functioning. But he also is able to be present with you when it is needed as well. But you're not going to get a masculine man that's going to sit there and want to talk to you about feelings in the relationship for hours. A man anchored in his healthy masculine draws out your feminine only if you are willing to do that work. This is what I teach women how to do, is how do you embody into that so that you then either draw that out of the other person, or you draw out more of the same and the relationship just neutralizes itself and it becomes non-existent. The universe removes energetically what is not aligned. So as soon as you start moving more into your feminine, then you're going to see more of his feminine, more of his passivity, more of his wanting to be coddled because of his emotions. And so you'll see him reacting and being reactive, and you'll see it very quickly. So a man anchored in his healthy masculine draws out your healthy feminine. And what I can tell you from a lifetime of being a lot more in my masculine energy is that being in the opposite of that feels amazing. It feels, sometimes you want to go into that getting shit done. And I'm going through something right now where I am in more of a leadership role in a project that's going on. And so I notice, oh, there I am doing that. And so I don't want to do that. I mean, I'm good at it, but I don't want to just take over and be the entire manager of all things. So I notice myself going into that because that is in my nature. But I'm learning from having my own challenges with health and from pushing to burnout and pushing that I no longer do that. I now listen to myself and what makes me feel like I'm getting knocked out of my energetic core of my feminine. And I pull on the masculine when needed. So remember that this is not talking about oppression of women. I'm not talking about that. So when we look at this from a biology standpoint, we're not talking about this like, oh, it's airy, fairy, feminine, masculine. No, this is biological. And we don't live in the 50s anymore, but unfortunately we've lost a lot of those value systems of the roles that the man has and the role that the woman has without the oppression and control. But we've lost it completely because I think we swung so far into the feminism independent mode because women have been so wounded that they're like, oh, I've learned my lesson. I don't want any man. Ladies, don't let a man near you and all this. And yes, we need to have boundaries. Yes, you need to have standards. You need to know what you want and what you don't want, and then have those standards there to protect you with the boundaries there to enforce those standards. And so when we're talking about nature, for an example, the lioness hunts and she's fierce and capable, but yet still she yields the den to the pride structure. And the wolf doesn't dominate his mate into submission. He holds the perimeter so she can raise the pack without vigilance draining her. When you're in vigilance, I spent most of my life in vigilance, hypervigilance, overvigilance, you get exhausted from that. And when you don't have a healthy man there being the vigilant one, you have to be. And it's exhausting. Did you lock the door? No. Did you? Wouldn't you rather have a man that's, he's locked the door. The place is secure. He's already thought about your safety 100 different ways. He's thought about what could go wrong and he's remedied that. You want a man that is thinking like that, not you having to be like that, because that's what's pulling you out of that feminine energy to be able to care for your young. You're too busy trying to think about safety. So remember that nothing in the animal kingdom survives on two things trying to lead in the same direction at once. Just like you can't have two CEOs, or when you do, there's going to be clashing. There always needs to be this system in place, really. And if you have two CEOs trying to dominate in the home, you're going to just be knocking heads and butting heads and fighting and going toe to toe. And nobody wants that. So remember that polarity isn't about submission and being weak. That's not at all what I'm saying, because I'm not. I'm not that type of woman. I'm very strong and fiery. So it's not about that. It's still about being powerful, but it's about wholeness. And like I said, in my earlier days, I would have thought it was great to have a passive man, maybe a weaker man that would shrink himself in my bigness, my bigger energy, my strong emotions, my reactions, my passion about things, my stubbornness, my tendency to be more serious. When you're in a relationship that just keeps you serious all the time, that's not being in your feminine, right? But what a strong, capable, high-achieving woman really does need, even if she doesn't realize it, is a man secure enough within himself and his masculinity that her strength and her bigness doesn't threaten him. It actually invites him to rise into his greatness. So in this dynamic, you will notice if you are in your space, you're feeling good, you're not trying to run the show, you're resting, you're taking care of yourself, you're going for walks, you're really nurturing yourself, and he is doing his part, and you are talking to him from the space of fullness and love and self-love, and it's coming from this place within you that's not like castrating him, right? Then that makes him rise. You say, that will not work for me. I would like you to learn to speak to me more softly, please. That doesn't work for me, So a man that is healthy, his instinct will kick in, and he will take note, and you will notice him shifting with that. But an unhealthy man, it will just get worse. The more you stand up for yourself and have standards and, voice what's not working for you, the worse it gets when it's someone that's trying to control you and dominate you and manipulate you. The litmus test, as I've been saying for a long time now, is how does he respond to your feedback, feelings, and criticisms? How does he respond? Does he take it in? Does he say, I hear you, and adjust? Or does it blow up? Does he minimize it? Does he shift it? Does he sweep it under the rug? Does he blow up and make it into a fight and make it about you and make it your fault? Here is something that's really important to know, is that a misogynistic man isn't a man that's too masculine. You might think that. You think a masculine man just hates women, or he's too masculine to respect women. But actually, that's not really what it is. It's that he is very much dysregulated, and he's reactive, controlling, and threatened by that contrast instead of being motivated by it, like I just said. And so true masculinity doesn't need to shrink a woman to feel like a man. So this is really important because I've said this a long time ago. I've been studying polarity and relationships and all the things for 13 years. I'm actually quite a geek about relationship stuff. I listen to like 18 hours I have the Spotify, and you get like, is it 15 hours or something of audiobooks, and I max out before I even hit my 30 days because I don't watch television. I listen to books and I geek out on stuff. And so the amount of relationship books and personal transformation and development books I read and psychology books is astronomical, what I've taken in. And so I geek out on this stuff, but I really believe that a man that is abusive, disrespectful, walks all over you, tries to cut you down, he's not in his healthy masculine. Why would a man in his healthy masculine ever even feel threatened by a woman instead of inspired by her or in awe of her? Why would a man in his healthy masculine need to cut you down a few pegs because you're too big for him, or he's threatened by you, or he's jealous of you, or you're doing better than him and he doesn't want that, and so he needs to knock you down a few pegs? A healthy masculine man would be, as long as, obviously, I'm not talking about you being entitled, and I'm not talking about that, not Obviously, I'm not talking about being abusive. I'm saying a woman who is in her fullest self, a woman who has something that the man is threatened by. That's when he starts to say things to knock you down, kind of knock you down a few pegs, make you question your worth, make you question if you're good enough, instead of you knowing that you are and recognizing actually you're assessing if he's good enough for you. This is the 180 women need to do, because you've spent your whole life asking, am I good enough for him? Instead of, do I like him? What does he bring to my life? And based on who I am and the things that I have done and the things I have accomplished, the work I've done on myself and continue to do on myself, is he good enough for me? That's the 180, ladies. That's what you need to be asking yourself. And if you're not asking yourself and you feel like, no, you're not good enough, it is time to develop yourself. It is time to up-level yourself, to elevate yourself, to really go all in on your inner game, your inner work. I've been doing this work for decades on myself. And I mean, I can't honestly remember when it all started, because I was a teenager reading self-help books. So I had this thing in me very young, and I was in and out of therapy very young. I had a baby at 19, and I was postpartum depression because I was in a very abusive relationship at that time. And so of course I was depressed and not doing well mentally. I went to like a postpartum support group and counseling, and I have been in and out of that for a great deal of my life. I'm at a place now where I don't really use therapy because I've done so much of it, and I don't actually find it all that helpful at this point in my journey. I've done so much work that I truly don't feel like I'm done, but I feel like I'm over that I don't find the value in that. I would much rather work with a coach. And so that's just me, because I have done so much inner work that and even just getting to a place where it's like, I don't need to be always doing so much inner work. Now it's about really like polishing. And now, what do I want next? This new chapter, and how do I make my life beautiful, and how much more relaxed can I be, and joy, how much joy can I experience? Because I spent so much time bracing and living in stress mode and putting out fires and constantly dealing with crises and chaos, that this chapter is about like, things are so calm. I'm like, okay, I need to like step it up. I've taken space away from the business and client work, and just doing very little client work right now as I'm transitioning and moving and all that. And you'll notice I took a pause from the podcast. That was really just because I didn't expect things to move as quick as they did when I put my house up for sale. So everything just moved very quickly. I think I mentioned it in a previous episode, but things are moving quickly. And that's, I believe, always a sign you're going in the right direction, when things move swiftly and the universe takes over and starts like leading you and moving you like a current. And so I'm trusting that. So I have spots that I will be opening up in the fall for a one-on-one. And if that's something that you are wanting to work with me around with your relationship and really do this work that I'm talking about, so where you feel secure within yourself, so much so that if a man comes in and starts fucking with that, you're holding him accountable. And if he's not willing to do the work and adjust, and all he does is bring out those 6 faces we talked about, keep that podcast on replay, because that is like the core of my life's work, that I have boiled that down, and it's going to be a book. Hint, hint. Because there's so much bullshit out there online about this, that, and the other. Like I made a joke that I read somewhere that someone was going, there was this trend about narcissists have thick eyebrows. Like there's just so much shit out there. And also there's imperfect men. I'm flawed. I have wounds. I've been through a lot of shit. Some of it comes up in my relationship. By this time, when you're in your late 40s, early 50s and beyond, you've seen some shit. You've been through some shit. We're all traumatized. We've all had wounds of different natures. So it's not about that. It's about, are you and he willing to do the work to change? And is the relationship bringing up levels of emotional turbulence that is something you are not coping with? Because a relationship should never be about coping and recovering from the last blowout. There should be a synergistic co-creation of the relationship. Hey, I noticed I snapped, and by the way, having someone that can do this is like life-giving. I noticed that I was this or that. I snapped, or I was feeling a little overwhelmed in my tone with that, and here's what was going on for me, and I'm going to work on that. Okay, yes, I hear you, and I think I'm feeling this way, and so I think we were just kind of bumping up against each other. Let's try to do better. Yes, okay, it's done, clean, back to loving resonance. Two emotionally intelligent people can do that. I can look at someone else's view, and that person should be able to do the same. But if you're with someone and all it is friction and fighting and all kinds of chaos, when you bring up something that he did, said, that you want, that you need, something that's not working for you, and that happens every time. I don't mean just once in a while where you have conflict, but it's every time. That's a problem. That is a sign of someone that is not going to change. When you've been with them for years and every time you do it, it's like trying to get tampons at the hardware store. You're not going to get it. You're knocking on the wrong door. So you have the choice to either accept it, change it, or leave it. And if you are trying to discern what the right decision is, because I know things are complicated and complex and things are not always as easy as just walk away, but I'm not saying that you shouldn't. If you're in that place where you are discerning about what is next and you want some mentorship from a woman who's been there, I have the wait list in the show notes that you can join to be notified when a private coaching spot opens up. And I have courses on my site as well. I'll put the link to my course store in the show notes as well. So there's some self-study, self-paced options there that you can dive into. All right. And I will chat with you in the next episode. Bye for now.